Yeah, let me just talk about general approach to IT security. So there's really sort of three key pillars to IT security in general. The first one is having a layered approach to IT security. So you've got a number of different security controls all protecting the same vector. So what that means is if one particular security control gets compromised, you've still got protection in place from others. And this is what we call defense in depth. The second one is containment. So the idea is we're isolating our systems. So if we do have a breach in a particular system or component, that breach doesn't necessarily spread to the rest of our environment. It's quite similar when you think about having a fire break to stop the spread of forest fires. Same sort of thing. And finally, we're talking about providing only the accesses that is required for someone to complete the role and no more. And that's the idea of least privilege. So that's a quick introduction about the sort of main key pillars to security, which I'm sure most of you know. So what can you do to improve your security? Now, I'm sure many of you have probably got reasonably secure environments. I hope you have. But you know, as Roman says, it's a very much a changing landscape, and you're never going to be 100% secure. So how can you improve your security? I think the first key one is think about doing it in small chunks. Security can seem like a big, quite overwhelming task. So if you break it down into small chunks, you're going to have a much better chance at increasing your security. Target high-risk groups of users. So maybe you think about, okay, I'm going to just concentrate on increasing the security of my finance team because I see that as a large risk within my organisation. And then you can work through the rest of the groups within your organisation. And another key point is start looking at implementing security controls that are going to have the biggest improvement. And I'm going to talk about those in a minute. And I guess the last key thing I wanted to say is, it's a continual challenge. You've got to stay at it all the time. You can't just leave it alone. Now, top strategies. What are the top strategies for improving your security in your environment? Now, I'm going to go through a quick four here. First one is anyone implementing application whitelisting at the moment in their environment? A couple, not many. This is the number one thing you can do to improve your security. So the idea is that you have a list of applications and only those applications can run in your environment. If you're on a Microsoft platform and you've got enterprise licensing on your client devices or you're using remote desktop or something like that, you can look at using Microsoft App Locker. It's very easy to use and very effective. Obviously, when you look at other solutions like I think McAfee and Trend, they've got endpoint protection where you can actually whitelist applications that can run on client devices. So, yeah, if there's anything, go away today, and if you're not implementing application whitelisting, have a look in your environment and see how easy that you can do. And once again, maybe you can just do it in piecemeal fashion. Just get your finance team with application whitelisting and then looking at rolling it out further. Application patching. Obviously we've probably all seen in the news things like Java and particularly Flash vulnerabilities, causing significant breaches. As Roman said, some of these attacks are from software vulnerabilities that are, up to 2, 3, even 10 years old. So it's very important to maintain your applications with the latest updates. And of course, follows on from that is operating system patching. Operating system patching, if you're in a Microsoft environment, there's sort of been two schools of thought here. One has been, okay, a new patch has come out, I'm going to wait for a couple of months and let everyone else find the bugs in it before I install it in my environment. And the second one is, okay, I'm going to install it straight away and just take the risk. For us personally, our approach has been to install operating updates as soon as they're available, within the next maintenance window. And so the idea is we're reducing the risk that we face from any vulnerability, but on the other hand, that we're potentially putting ourselves at the mercy of Microsoft's patch testing. But it's one of the things you need to consider. And finally, obviously, is restricting administrative access. So this comes back to this least privilege idea. So for administrative users in your organisation, you want to provide them only the amount of access that they need to be able to do their administrative role. And further on from that, there's this idea of just-in-time access. So not only do you only provide the amount of administrative access they require, but you only provide it for the period that it's required. Now, if you want to come and see us at the OneNet booth, we can talk. There's a whole list of these strategies and controls that you can implement, and we can work through them with you. And some of them will have, a lot of pain to try and implement, no doubt about it. There'll be some user resistance. Some of them will be quite costly to maintain ongoing. But I guess the most important thing is that you've worked through this list and you've given it consideration, and you can make an informed decision about what you're going to take the risk with in your organisation and what you're going to look at implementing. So how does this change in the cloud? Now, if you've got a competent cloud provider, you can leverage their platform, their skills, their expertise to help increase your security. Security should be a core competency of any cloud provider. And as such, many of the fundamental security controls, they will be already taken care of. And that could be things like operating system patches, physical data center security, complex passwords, all of those sort of things the cloud provider should well be taken care of. But my key point here is security is still your responsibility. As Roman said, it's very likely that the cloud provider is only providing a subset of the services to your business. There'll be lots of other things going on that you still need to take control. And most importantly, you need to understand who's doing what. So am I taking care of this? Is my cloud provider taking care of this? Have I got all of my bases covered? And the key point there is don't make assumptions. Don't assume that someone else is taking care of the security for you. Ultimately, as I said again, it's your responsibility. Now, one of the things that we really like is when our customers engage with us about security. We want them to come and talk to us and make sure that we've covered all bases, because it's about reducing risk for both parties, so very important. Don't make assumptions. Now, final point I wanted to make, one thing I talk to my team about all the time is, what is the number one thing we do? What's the number one thing we do? Sure, we provide great service and we run a lot of servers and we've got firewalling and patching and all these other great things going on, but what's the number one thing we do? And for me personally, I think the number one thing we do is backups. Backups are the number one thing we do. And when I'm talking about backups, I'm not just talking about server backups, I'm talking about backups of configuration, so switches, appliances, all those sort of things, and backup of knowledge, stuff in people's head, institutional knowledge. If the whole world blows up and everything turns to custard, if you've got your backups, there is a ray of hope.